G'day fellow flight simmers and random YouTubers. Yes, I am disturbed. If you ever want to spend the best 10 minutes of your life in knowing whether Vatsim is for you or not, I recommend you look at this video here. Now, it's a guy by the name of Russ Barlow. Now, he was a pilot, many thousands of hours. And this guy hits the nail right on the head. Because let's face it, not all of us are cut out for flight simming. And there's 5 red flags. Now, if you want to spend the best 10 minutes of your life in knowing whether Vatsim is for you, I highly recommend looking up Russ Barlow. Now, there's 2 particular red flags that I know apply, and not necessarily relating to me, but I know of instances where it just rings so true. The first of these red flags he raises is patience. And he puts it a lot more succinctly, or better phrase than me. But basically, there's young kids out there, and one thing young guys don't have is patience. Because like I said before, they want to jump in. Quick, I want to get up in the air. Don't worry about understanding the flight or what I have to do. They just want to. That's the first thing. And the second thing is study. If study is not your thing, then definitely do not take up flight simming. And I say flight simming. Flight gaming, if you want to treat it as a game, yeah, go ahead. You can do whatever. But flight simming requires a lot of study. And I know, and no truer example than that is that I know a young guy, I've known him for several years, has a disability. He wanted to be a pilot, and his disability has stopped him from becoming a pilot. But even more importantly, probably what he doesn't realise is that, and he's told me quite adamantly, he said he doesn't like studying. If you don't like studying, you're never going to be a pilot. I can tell you that right now. It's like someone saying to me, I like to be an engineer, but I suck at maths. So those are 2 red flags, but he raises 5, but they're what I thought was the most important. If you don't have the patience and you can't study, then please do not take up flight simming. And I'll give you an example. I can't remember exactly. I was on centre one day, and the previous day I came across a young person, and they submitted, and I said, look, go away, and I recommend you study this and look up and that. And then one day, and the next day, and I thought, he comes up, and I thought, geez, this kid must be a fast learner. He's like one day, and he studied everything that I told him. Anyhow, he came back and he showed me this on his flight plan. Okay, and he did the right thing. He started with the Cessna. He started off VFR flight rules. And he wanted to go from Ballarat to Renmark. Now, Ballarat to Renmark, and Renmark's over in South Australia, that's over 200 kilometres, and wanted to fly VFR at 9,500 feet. Have a look at there, see, RFL. Well, he obviously didn't understand VFR cruising levels, because from Ballarat to Renmark, you're going west, so that was one thing. But this is the killer. You want to go to Ballarat or Renmark via those waypoints. Now, if he's decided to go VFR, and he's got these waypoints here aren't VFR waypoints. They are IFR waypoints. Because VFR, if you're telling me you're flying VFR, you either have gone you either have used 2 types of flight planning in when you decide to go VFR, and that's either dead reckoning or pilotage. Now, I won't go too far into this, and I think I've touched on it before. Pilotage means you you're going from point A to point B, and you're going to follow, say, a road. If the road gets you from point A to point B, and on the way, or you're going to use what they call dead reckoning, which is drawing a point from point A to point B, and then using what they call every 10, 15 miles using check marks. In other words, the first 10 miles might be, for example, there's a road crossing and you use that as a checkpoint. And then the next 10 to 15, you might be a nuclear power station on the way, which they stand out like the proverbials, and use that. So that's dead reckoning. So anybody listening to this video, I highly recommend you study those two. They're the types of resources you use for flight planning, okay, or VFR flight plan. Robert and Bolam are IFR. Now, bugger if I know if you're going from Ballarat to Renmark, and how are you going to identify Robert? IFR waypoints are just imaginary points in the sky. They're GPS imaginary points. They're nothing real. So if you're flying VFR, how are you going to identify these points on the way up to Renmark? So I hope the penny has suddenly dropped for a lot of people. Okay, so anyhow, I couldn't resist. I had to get in discussion with this person. Now, I've scrubbed out their name, because when I saw this, I said, "Oh, how you going?" Oh, he said, "Hi, Nick." I said, "How much study have you done?" And he says, "Yeah, I know where to find the weather. I've started using the EFB, very good, to help me plan a flight. Yeah, use the EFB, but once again, because they don't know the basic principles, EFB just tells you from point A to point B. It doesn't tell you actually all the rules for VFR flight planning. So I've started using it to help me fly. Oh, and I think my flight plan is an improvement." What? Yeah? You got the Cessna 172 and the VFR, right? And you probably got the departure and the destination, you probably knew. But the rest is just a schmozzle. The most important parts was a schmozzle. Okay? So, once again, they didn't study. And I said, "Firstly, are you flying VFR?" And I'm listening to what's going on, hoping to learn some more. "Yes," she says, "VFR." "Okay, so what's wrong with your flight plan?" I said. And he goes, "I don't know. Care to share?" So I said, "Study up on VFR cruising levels, then come back to me." "Thanks, I will." So on my route, I should have even 1,000 plus. Okay, you got that? Well, good. Okay, now look at your route details. "What's wrong with that?" I said. "Any idea?" And they had no idea, because the penny had not dropped. What it means, we'll get to that. Not yet, but I'm looking for examples that might give me a clue. Okay. So I asked the question, and this killed me. He said, "Okay, so what does it mean to fly VFR?" And he comes back, visual flying rules. And I'm thinking, you didn't understand the question. The question is, what does it mean? You're talking to a guy who used to be in air traffic control, and you're telling me now how to suck eggs. And I said to him, I just couldn't. I know what VFR is. The question is, what does it mean to fly VFR? And you're flying in accordance with those rules. And I said, "Well, what are those rules?" And it gets funnier and funnier. The big book from CASA that explains it all. And I had to laugh. I said, "Well, maybe you should look at that big book. It is 360 pages long. I'm trying." I said, "Well, look for the VFR part." And so once again, this person, whoever, wasn't prepared to go through the rules and read and study. And it says, yes, starts a page, and I need a visual fix every 30 minutes max, and what is my issue? And that is my issue. Okay. And so I couldn't resist. I said, "Let me tell you, what waypoints have you put in?" Robert and Bolam, but they're too far apart. The penny had not dropped that Robert and Bolam are IFR waypoints. Okay? They're imaginary. So you as a VFR pilot, if you can identify and Bolam, imaginary points in the sky, well, I'll go jump. The problem with using EFB when it defaults to IFR, see, because the kid had no idea. Okay, so what sort of waypoints are they? Are they an IFR or VFR? Well, I'm pretty sure they are IFR, so hello, you're starting to wake up. So completely the wrong sort. They are my GPS, but that is not the point. So why have you put IFR waypoints in there when you have the fly planned VFR? Because I don't study hard enough. That's the most intelligent thing he's said in the whole conversation. And I said, well, now you're getting somewhere. All can be fixed if you change your plan to IFR. I'm going to give that a go and blah, blah, blah. Thanks, Nick. And I said, look, read up on what they call pilotage and dead reckoning. So that's basically a young person, eager, but just didn't. Now, if that person doesn't want to study, well, go, and if you're that type of person, don't waste your time watching this video any longer. Go play, I don't know, American Truck Simulator or some shoot 'em up game, because flight simming takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of study and dedication. But what's his name? That Ross Barlow hits it on the head. Like I said, before you do anything else, watch this. And if it rings true to you, don't waste your time and don't waste your money, because flight simming can get expensive. You know, I know a person who's spent thousands of dollars just on flight simming. Mind you though, they could have gone and did some real flights and probably done it in the real world, but that's another issue, okay? So, don't waste your time. I'm telling you now, every one of us has got different talents. I'm one of the lucky ones. I loved studying, and I found my place in, I've got an ability to make money, but that's a different story. Let's not worry about that. Some people have got an ability to, I don't know, be great doctors or great lawyers or great pilots or great whatever, So if it's not you, you have to have a certain character and the ability to be a pilot, even in the flight simming world. Okay? All right, let's start now. Let's start getting into the meaty stuff. All right, today, like I said, we're going to do a cross country, and we're going to go not from Ballarat. And I'm just trying to bear with me. Sorry, Wilcannia, WYCA. Okay, YOCA, and we're not going to go to Renmark. Okay, so. And I'm just trying to find Wilcannia. Okay, I know where I want to go, and I want to go to Cobar. Okay, so they're the two, YCBA. All right, so YCBA. Okay, so there we are here. We're Wilcannia, some little airport, middle of nowhere, New South Wales. And we want to go to Cobar, okay? So, first things first. The first things you do when you're starting out, you download what they call facilities charts for both of those airports. Facility chart is, you go to the aeronautical information package, there it is up there if you want to copy that. Go to there and you go to charts, right? Oh, sorry, my apologies. No, you don't go to charts. You go to the en route sup, which is here, 1st of December. You go there and you go through and you look through Cobar, which is here somewhere in alphabetical order, so it can't be too hard. And there it is there, FAC, facilities. Don't worry about the RDS, that's runway distance and all that. But download that and Wilcannia. Okay, so down, it's down there somewhere, Wilcannia, there it is. So download those two, and you get this. There's Cobar, and don't worry about that, and won't worry about that. And I'm trying to find Wilcannia. Okay, maybe I'd better download Wilcannia. Sorry about this, it's piss farting around. Okay, so here we are, we're at Wilcannia. This is where we're going to start. Now, the facilities chart. This is basically what you first, before you take off and whatever you do, you need to look at this. Why do you need to look at this? Well, there's three things. You need to find out what the elevation is, and later on I'll explain to you why that's important. It's a certified airport. It means that there's certain requirements as far as bringing a radio. Okay? And in real life, if you want to know the weather, Aeronautical Weather Information Service, you phone them up, okay? And you get... Now, if you want to do that in real, I know there's a guy who flies on Vatsim, won't mention any names. Okay, that's a clue. Anyhow, he actually rings them up. He phones them up. If you ever look at his flight videos, he actually rings this number. We've got other means. Okay, and it gives us now when you see this, for example, if you see this speckled, it means it's not a sealed runway. So it might be dirt, grass. I think that actually indicates dirt. Anyhow, and see, when you see it black like that, means it's sealed and it's 931 metres long. Okay, so that's important because it depends on what you fly. If you decide, and I've seen it, don't laugh, I've seen people, the 737, and they line up and they're at a runway 931 metres long. Okay, good luck trying to, it might take off on 931, depends, but I doubt it. So that's important for whatever aircraft you're flying. But this is what you really want to know. Now don't forget, we're VFR. You need to that frequency there. Now, why is that? Well, the rules are, now, first of all, that's the first thing you do, so you download those. Now, the first thing you need to do is, when you're flight planning, like I said before, there's two ways to do it. You can either use pilotage and say, I'm going to go from Wilcannia to Cobar, okay? And I'm going to use pilotage. Well, unfortunately, we've got the World VFR. Sky Vector for Australia doesn't give the World VFR. The only VFR maps they provide are for around the major areas. Like, for example, around Melbourne, they call what they call VTC and VNC, Visual Terminal Charts and Visual Navigational Charts. And around the class, what they call Metro Class D and places like that, they give you the... But when you're out in the middle of nowhere, there's no World Aeronautical Charts available online. However, in the real world, of course, they are. And if we can get back to that, and how do you know that? You get that chart there. World Aeronautical Chart 3355. Now, what does that look like? What does a World Aeronautical Chart look like? Well, it looks something like this. Now, I know this is in WA where I live because I know Narrogin, which is down here. Have a look down here, Narrogin and Pingelly. These are all, but that's what you do. See, so if you're, let's say for example, Beverley is a place where they do a lot of gliding. So if you want to fly into the Beverley, all these purple are all airstrips. Okay, Corrigan. A lot of gliding happens. So if I'm coming from the south and I want to land at Beverley, all I need to do is follow this highway. Okay? So that's a World Aeronautical Chart. Now, we don't have them available online. However, there is a thing called Little Nav Map, or there's another thing called Plan G. Now, unfortunately for our flight, there is no road, because you're out in the middle of nowhere and there's no actual sort of place we can't follow a road. I mean, the best we can do is see this red this highway here, we could probably follow that. But when you're taking off, it's probably hard to pick up. If you're flying from Wilcannia, and it depends on what runway, it's pretty hard to pick up that highway. So what you use is what we call dead reckoning. And it's using a world aeronautical chart, and you draw a straight line from point A to point B, right? And then use different instruments. I won't get too much, and in the end of the day, it works out a magnetic heading for you. This is if once you've worked out all the winds and etc. But we've got here, this plan or little nav map does it all for you. So by doing this and drawing this line, we know we have to follow 082 magnetic, okay, and follow this line, and it'll get us to Cobar. So now when you're in populous areas, you can use, I think my previous video, when I said, you're going to leave Moorabbin and go south, you can follow the coast and go out to some Barwon Heads, I think it was called, and you can use pilotage. You use a reference, use the coastline, you use a lighthouse even, and make sure, and just continually reference visual aids on the ground. But when you're out in the middle of nowhere, dead reckoning is probably your best friend, because you've got very little to sort of use as a visual reference, apart from this road. And once you get over here, like I said, because you're in the pilot's seat, you've got to fly this side, not that side, because you can't see this road. So you've got to be flying this side and into Cobar, okay? So that's what we're using. If I'm using a little nav map, I'm using dead reckoning, because this basically, I've drawn a line on the map and it's taken in the winds. Oh, and there's another thing. Make sure, once you're online, airport weather source, Vatsim, okay? You can either get it from your flight simulator or get it from Vatsim. Now, if you're on P3D or whatever, you can get it from Active Sky, whatever. But being online, Vatsim, you've got to get the weather from Vatsim. Now, having a look at that, if I hover over this for a second, you can see the weather down there. Now, you see the NOAA nearest META, it says down there, YSTU, that's Dubbo, which is quite a distance away. What I found, if you really want the weather, is what they call the aerodrome forecast. Okay, so, let me have a look. Okay, so you got Wilcannia. Let's go back one here. Let's reset this. And you've got an area map. Now we're flying in this area here because we're west of Dubbo. So if I click that and do a search of Area 22, it'll show you all the aerodromes. So we can see we're at Wilcannia, and basically there it is there. The wind's at 190 degrees at 10 knots and variable between 190 and 250, and there's the temperature's 37 and the QNH is 1005. Okay, so that's Wilcannia. Now, Cobar, there it is there. The META tells us 210, visibility in excess of 1, and they're scattered at 12,000 feet. Okay, so when we're flight planning, we've done our flight plan, we've decided, yep, okay, the weather's good for flying. And by the way, there's three things you have to consider, or two main things when you're deciding to fly. What level you're going to fly, and does that level maintain clearance of the ground or obstacles, and that includes, man-made towers and all that. That's the first thing you need to plan for. So we've decided up here we're going to fly 3,500, and the beauty of this, of course, the little nav map, there's the terrain in green. We can see 3,500, and we're flying at the VFR cruising level, we're going odd plus 500 because we're flying east. So that satisfies those conditions. Now, what airspace are we in? That's the biggest question. And you go, geez, I don't know. What airspace are we in? Well, the next thing you've got to do is find out, how do I find out airspace? And there is once again, you go to the, just bear with me, let's get rid of that. We go to charts, we go to aeronautical, and we go scroll down, say yes, I agree, and we go to charts. And there's a whole lot of charts, but we want the en route chart low. Now this is for IFR en route planning, right? But we can use it to find out what, and if we have a look at here, if I click this, there's Dubbo, so we're sort of in that area there. So we need en route chart number 5. So okay, here's en route chart number 5. Something's gone wrong here. Let me just download it. Okay, so here we are, and I'm just I want to make some annotations. So there's Wilcannia. We want to fly there. Okay, and what we've done, basically we've drawn a line straight along there, the Whiskey 275. And we can see between Wilcannia and, like I said, this is for VFR flying. If I want to fly, this is for IFR. That Whiskey is the Whiskey Airway, and that's for IFR. But we've almost sort of recreated between those 2 points, basically flying along that line. And you've got 2.6 and 124. 124 is the distance, and 2.6. But we're not really interested in that because 2,600 tells us that that's the minimum lowest safe altitude that you can go between Wilcannia and, but we're not going to fly 2,600 because it's not a VFR. So we've got to go up to 3,500, and definitely we're not going to hit anything. Okay, that's the first thing. But what airspace is this? Okay, if you look closely, there's a lot of information. That tells you right there. Now, in Australia, we've got Class Alpha airspace. Well, that's only for IFR, exclusive IFR. So we're not IFR, so don't forget about that. And that's the lowest level, flight level 245. There's Class Echo, and there's certain rules as far as the Class Echo, right? We're not in Class Echo because we're below flight level 125. We said 3,500, okay? So we're below that. And there's another class called Class Charlie, and you find that all around the major airports. All airports open 24/7, Melbourne, Perth, Adelaide, all those airports all got Class Charlie airspace. So we're not in Class Charlie. So there's only one other Class Charlie, and that's Class Golf. In other words, we're in uncontrolled airspace there. Okay, so having said that, Class Golf, what does that mean? Well, it means several things, depending on whether you're an IFR or VFR. We're a VFR. In Class Golf airspace, you do not need to submit a flight plan because you're not going to talk to anyone. Or sorry, you're not going to talk to an air traffic controller. That's the thing. The times when you do need to submit a class or you need to submit a flight plan is when you're going to talk to ATC. In this case, we're not. However, that doesn't mean we're not talking to anyone. We are talking to people. And you can see here, it hasn't indicated there, but have a look at COBAR and have a look at that. We have to make what they call CTAF transmissions. In other words, Common Traffic Advisory Frequency. You need to make a transmission when you're departing Wilcannia, and you need to make a transmission when you're arriving into Cobar. And that's the frequency. Now here, it doesn't show Wilcannia. Luckily, we've downloaded the FAC. And we've downloaded the FAC. There's Wilcannia and 126.7. And funny enough, that's the same frequency as Cobar. So they're the only transmission. They're the only things we're trying to transmit to if there's any other aircraft, because these outback aerodromes only got the local, GA aircraft coming in and out. And you need to be, because you're VFR and you decided to take it on your shoulders to look out for other aircraft, then obviously there must be some sort of communication so people know what you're doing. Okay, so they're basically all the things you need to consider if you're flying on Vatsim. A, what airspace am I in? If it's Class G, do I need to make, and on VFR, then you don't need to submit a flight plan. Okay, but I need to talk to someone, and that's what you need to do. You need to tune your radio on 126.7. Okay, so now there's another thing that you need to understand. You've got VMC, I've talked about VMC conditions. You've got, as we saw the METARs for Cobar and Wilcannia, they're suitable for VMs or VFR flighting. But there's 123 miles between Wilcannia. 123 miles between Wilcannia and Cobar. Because it's fine over in Wilcannia and it's fine over at Cobar, it doesn't mean it's going to be fine in between. You may encounter cloud. Now remember, like I said before, and by the way, it's important to understand, I think if you can, I highly recommend downloading this Visual Flight Rules Guide from CASA. And by downloading that, you can find there's a lot of good stuff you need to understand. Okay, so that's a World Aeronautical. And one of them is, once you downloaded that, go to this section. And remember what I talked about before. You need to understand this part here. Remember, we planned it. These are all VMC criteria for class Alpha, Charlie, Echo and Golf. We're in Golf. Now, we've planned it 3,500. So this part doesn't apply to us because this is for only 3,000, at or below, whichever's the higher, 3,000 or 1,000. But we're at 3,500, okay? So that doesn't apply to us. However, this does. We're at 3,000. So what are the VMC conditions you need? If you're flying at 3,500 and you're in class Gold, right, and we're below 10,000. So you need to have a visibility of 5,000 metres, and you need to be clear of cloud 1,500 metres horizontally and 1,000 feet vertical. Excuse me for a minute, I've got my tea here. I think it's gone cold. Oh, geez, cold chai. Oh, gross. Okay, so how do we find out if we're going to be in VMC conditions from point A to point B? Well, we need to go to another place. And I told you, this is not for the faint-hearted. This is all the stuff you need to prepare yourself if you really want to take flight simming seriously. Okay? And I know it sounds long-winded, but hey, if you're not prepared to put in the work and put in all the research and do all this, then like I said, go play American Truck Simulator. There's a thing called graphical area forecasts, and what that does, it gives you a whole graphical representation of the whole of Australia. And where you can see this area here, we're west of Dubbo. So if we look at this, New South Wales, up the top here, you've got the GAF area map, which is all this, and you've got New South Wales from 0 to the next 600, 0 to next 6 hours. So from now to the next 6 hours. And you can see here, now you can't see it there, but what I'll do, I'll download this iRes PDF. And once again, if you don't understand this, read up on it, how to understand. Now, coincidentally, and you think I haven't done my homework, there it is, YWCA, YWCA, okay. And I wish I knew how to make this, but there it is there, and we're going to Cobar. And you can see it's in area B1, okay? And that area is encircled by this area, these green. That's area B1, and you can see this little corner up here with the green's A3, and this is A1, and this is A2, and all that area is in. So we're in area B1, okay? So you look at this, and you have a look and say, well, we're in area B1, so which is a subset of area B. So this is basically B, but it's B1 as well, because B1 there's certain conditions you can look at. And so you've got area A, and we're nowhere near area A. We're only in B1 or B. So you look at here, and what are the surface visibility and the weather? Well, all you got is more than 10 kilometres and no significant weather, because if it was significant weather for our area, you can see here you've got some significant weather happening all around here. And if you look at Sydney today, the tower is shithouse conditions, excuse the French, but we're in this area, okay? So you can see area B, you've got more than 10 kilometres, which satisfy VMC conditions. Now, understand what this means. And I'm not going to go through it. Like I said, I'm not here to hold your hand. You have to find this information yourself. The SCT, AC, AS, 8,000 above, blah, blah, blah. What does that mean? Well, it means you've got scattered areas, altocumulus and altostratus, 8,000 feet and above 10,000. Now, we're flying at 3,500. So do you think we've got any chance of hitting any cloud or going through cloud? Not a snowflake's chance in hell, because the cloud around that area is only 8,000 and above 10,000 east of YBRN. I'm not sure where YBRN is. Anyhow, you look for YBRN. There's Dubbo there. So for us, from point A to point B, it's all going to be fine weather. And that's how you know. So now, you know you're not going to hit anything because you've planned at 3,500, which is correct, right? You've got VMC conditions in the whole journey, and not like this person here decided they want to fly some 200 kilometres and not understanding what VMC conditions are you going to have throughout those 200 kilometres, you know? So you've got to be certain, and you've got to do your homework. So you've satisfied the conditions, okay, and you've got your, like I said before, we've planned by our little nav map We know that we're going to take up of heading as 082 magnetic because it's taken into account the weather from Vatsim. Okay, so I think I'm not sure how long I've gone here. 40 minutes, well, already just blabbing. Okay, what I'll do is I'll cut it short. I've given you the background. Now, I said I was going to fly this, but I think that'll be having due regard of all the information that we've got, okay? So the next flight, and I'll probably do it maybe later on tonight or even tomorrow, actually, we'll actually do the flight. We'll do the calls that I need to make because we've determined the only calls you need to make, we don't need to talk to ATC, you only have to make CTAF transmissions, okay? And it's the same frequency, so it's 126.7. And you can actually find this information here, actually. If I hover over this and go right click and show airport information, I think it tells you here somewhere. It tells you the elevation, but it doesn't tell you. There it is, comms 126.7. Okay, so you can use this as but definitely use the charts. You need to use the chart to understand what airspace. That is the most telling, because the airspace dictates whether you're going to talk to AC or whether you don't talk to ACC and what frequencies you need to be on. So we've established everything. Now the next one will be just the flight. And I think if you really, I'm not sure if it's really, I'll do the flight, just to give you a sort of practical example and how I set up and get ready. But anyhow, I think I better stop it from there. It's been 40 minutes, and until next time you'll see me, I'll be in the plane, ready, fueled up, and ready to do this actual flight. So till next time, guys, see you all later. Cheers.